Now, at the end of part 1, Magenta Lion believed they could build a computer using, what did they call it? A hacksaw? I believe this madness must come to an end at some point. Let's see how it turned out. Hey, hey, hey. Hidey, 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 hidey. Alright. I've pulled this out of the case. This is the bracket that was here with all the cable channels. Now, the reason why I pulled this out is because I had this inkling, this notion that I was going to cut a groove in the metal to then fit the pump section of the Lion water block out the back of it. Now, because even if I did that, the distance between all these holes doesn't actually line up perfectly with the back of the block. They seem to be using two different standards, which happens when you get creative and you have to mix and match stuff because you want shiny stuff. Anyway, I decided to go to the local hardware store and get these. These are roofing brackets. Very lucky to find these, and they happen to be the perfect distance between the mounting points on the back of the board. So what I'll do is I will put 4 of them on here like that, and then I will, with this reattached back in the case, like I took it off just so I could have a look at it in the hardware store all together, I will have the block here with these attached. I will then mark on the back of these the corresponding screw holes that I'll be using for that. And then I'll take this back out, take these off, I'll go drill the holes out, and then hopefully when I assemble it all together, it'll snugly contain the Lion distro block on the back of the case with clearance for the pump. And yeah, I'm going to spray paint these black too because they're silver and everything else is black. I'm going for a white and black vibe within this case. I have the silver on the outside. I'm still unsure if I want to take it apart and spray it, but we'll see how it goes. Anyway, let's get to spray painting these. So I went away, I popped this back in. I've put it all back in place. There's like a number of screws that need to go back in, but now the bracket's back in place, as well as I got some like little 3.5-inch hard drive bays down there. These have been spray painted. They are pretty dry. They kind of come off the cardboard just here. And yeah, like left some, but whatever, I'll fix that later. Cool, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach each one of these to my brackets to my block. Yeah. Hopefully they're dry enough. If they're dry enough, I might just use the other ones. Good thing is too, the paint, I don't want to scratch the block. It's a nice block. But yeah. So these screws are a bit weird. They don't really fit that nice. So I'm going to actually cheat and use these screws that came with the radiator from before. So really lucky that all worked out well. Put them all in place and I'll get them all screwed up. Yeah, these fit really well. That's really good. I'm happy with that. Just because I want to make sure I'm not doing any damage to it. That they aren't a different screw size. I will put this in just to have a feel of it. Like the screws that I was using, they felt a bit tight, so I'm just worried they're a little bit off. But yeah, they're a bit different. They're a little bit different. But you know what? I think it's fine. It'll be fine. He said as he tried to convince himself. Where are all these? Swear to God, normally I keep a much cleaner working area, but everything is all over the place with this build. Just because there is a lot of creative solutions having to be come up with for my creative build. So I got these brackets as spare brackets because in case I muck up one of the drill points, I wanted some spares. And these are about $2.30 each for a bracket, then a can of paint, $8. So, you know, not blowing the bank, having some backup pans. But yeah, basically now I've got it sitting up like that. You know, feels pretty solid, and I didn't have to cut my case. All in all, not a bad solution. So what I'll do is I've got a mess of cables everywhere because I'm not sure how I want to manage all these cables as I'm going through. Okay, with my brackets in place, the idea behind having it like this, a little U bracket, instead of getting one of these and doing like that, I don't want to cut off the airflow behind it because it is going to sit far into my case. I have this here. The air will flow kind of around this. You know, this will impede it somewhat, but it should, for the most part, keep the air flowing. And then I'll be able to have this whole back section and flowing around onto the motherboard. Now, when I float this, and when I say float, my idea for this case is that, oops, this won't be here. I'm using that as a spacer so that when this is attached to the bracket for my case, this whole section at the bottom will be clear. So everything will be floating along. I'll have my motherboard floating, my graphics card floating, and this will be a clear section. I just want to give the appearance that you look inside and it's just floating nicely. There's nothing sitting in the case. It's like all mounted on the case, like a picture on a wall. Anyway, that's what I'm envisioning. How it turns out, I'm not sure. But yeah, we have that in place. Now I want to keep, I like clean lines. So my idea is that there's a clean line here, separation between the bracket and my distro block, as well as this. So now that I have this in place, I'm going to make sure it's flush up against the back of the case because I'm worried that as I turn it, it might have a bit of a lean to, which will then skew the edge of the results for marking my placeholders. So as I spin it around, just keep one hand on the back here. Is all my lovely cables that I will be dealing with at some point later on. I might just move them away. Right. Oh goody. Look at this. So, I talked about clean lines. One of the things I had to worry about was if there are clean lines behind this. So, I'm going to have to pull these off and move these up and down the channel. Which is, it's okay, it's fine, I can do it. Just take a note of where they got to go. First obstacle. But this one here, I can do the first mark. Oops. Mark 1, mark 2. Anything else I can mark? Not really, everything's in the way. So I've got to move this one. So as you can see, I've got my marks here that look really good, except for that one, don't know why that happened. Then I'll pull these off, get my drill. I might actually fix these to some wood, and I'll come down and I'll drill these out. So it's a bit of an involved process, but I believe the result will be worth my effort. So I'll just pull this out and quickly give it a move it around. So I might move it up a bit just so that I can later use this cable riser for those. I just duct tape these cables out of the way. Cable management. Sometimes you just can't avoid it. Other times you do it because it looks good and you shouldn't avoid it. There we go. all my bits and pieces are marked. Should I just pop this back? Alright, cable manager, where can we stick you? Cool. Right, time to go drill some holes in these bad boys. Now I have a drill. So the reason why I'm not going to drill it while it's on my plate is because if I go through I might damage it and I really don't want to deal with that. I'll be quite upset. It's cost a lot of money to get this here. A lot of time and waiting. So I'll quickly pull these off, get them going. In fact, before I do that, I will mark their location so that I remember where is what. B, L, B, T, R, T, R, B. Bottom right, bottom left, top left, top right. Oh. Can't forget that, right? Cool. I'll be back. I'm gonna go drill some holes. I took the brackets off the block and I put them into a block of wood, secured them down, put a drill through it, made my holes where the holes were marked. Now all that's left is for me to float this in the case. Now to hold in a position up, because you know obviously balancing this and trying to get screws in it's going to be quite difficult, I have this beauty here. So I'll pop that there like that, get this, and yeah, put you there like that. So that should allow me to float it as I get my screws. So the screws I'm going to be using, a rubber grommet that just go in the end and hold it all together. Okay, this is where the fiddly bit comes in. I gotta somehow get my fingers where they need to be in order to secure this on. Yeah, there's one in. Once I have one in place, the rest will be a lot easier because I won't be able to knock it forward like I just did then. Whoops. And I dropped it. Where'd it go? Okay. Oh. Okay, it's fine. There was a little kerfuffle, but yep. It's been secured in the case. Got it mounted at these 4 points, which was really good. So now my Lion Lee distro block looking amazing. It flow. Look at that, it flow. Now I wanted to get some symmetry here, and I think I got what I was achieving. This will obviously be nicely threaded out the back there. Doing all the cable managing stuff last. But yeah, now my case is prepped. Right, onto the motherboard. So now that I got my case all set up, well, prepped, it's not set up, it's prepped. That all the colored fans in, the distro blocks in, everything's raring to go, time to put the motherboard together. So with the motherboard, you want to do as much as you can outside of it. Now I don't have one of those fancy motherboard holders yet because I don't. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pop the motherboard here to then work on it. Now in this box it has some screws and a few other bits and bobs that I will be needing. Put that box there. Right, As you know, I am using the ASUS Dark Hero, and if you didn't know that, I have a video of me unboxing it. It was an ordeal getting it, so I made an ordeal of a video. Sorry it was so long. Anyway, I'm not just going to be plugging some RAM into this and installing an M.2, which is the Samsung 980 Pro, which has got incredible transfer speeds. I will be also using, where'd it go? I will also be using EQ Quantum Momentum Water Block. So it doesn't just cover my CPU, it also covers covering my MOSFETs. So I got to take a lot of this apart in order to install my Quantum Momentum. So what I'm going to do is pull this board apart a little bit to get a place to work. Right, now I've got that all flat and laid out. Let's have a look-see. Well, I can start with the easiest stuff first. And start with my So just need to peel this off. This allows heat contact and transfer into the passive heat shroud, which is awesome. So this will just, a little thing there, and that'll keep this in place, which is really nifty. That should all line up. Not too tight, just enough for it to be firmly on there. Cool. Next job, now that I've installed my M.2, is to pull all this apart, which is going to be fun. Because I need to install my EQ Momentum water block to look after my CPU's heat as well as the VRMs. So if you're looking at pulling this off, all the screws for it are at the back here. So I'm going to have to carefully pull those off. 1, 3. Now I can feel it moving away already. That should be the last one for that block. So it should come off nicely. Fortunately, as I thought, this kind of gets in the way. So I'm going to have to deal with that one as well. Little bit of an annoyance, but it's okay. I can deal with it. So one screw for you. Looks like there's a second screw over here. I'm just getting this back screws off. Now, if you have to do something and it feels like you're forcing it, you're using too much force and you've missed something. So you just go back and have another look to make sure you haven't missed anything. Okay, so on further inspection of this, it's actually an interlock system, which means even though this is free to move, this, the shroud over the audio components is threaded underneath, locking it down in place, which is a very cool design, but it also means I need to remove this before I can do anything. So, kind of got to disassemble a lot in order to do a little. So, just remove the 2 screws underneath, and that should release all my components that I need released, and also gives me a chance to have a good look at the board. Yep. So I'm just over here, so that should allow me to get all of this off. And when you go to pull it off, be careful because this does have an LED strip in it. But we're not looking at pulling it all off at the same time, so you just pop that to the side. Then with this, you simply lift it up carefully, and there is your heat thing. We call it heat shroud. That cools all your VRMs. Just look at them. Oh, beveled at a weird angle. It's cool. Okie dokie. On to the next part of this. Now it's time for the EQ momentum. So this bad puppy will go in and serve as the water block for cooling the CPU as well as the VRMs. So before I install my chip, which will be my 5950X, just gonna have a look at it, see what I need. So give us a back plate, it's good. They give us some putty strips. Don't think they've given us enough there, to be honest. What we got? We got some thermal compound, some screws, and then we have a plate. Please remove before use, and it's got the LED controller as well. Okie cokes. Right. So, oh no, it's double-sided. That's good. I was gonna say, it's not enough, but there's two. So that should cover all of that. Right. This is where it gets fun. Because if you look at the way this one was done, and this is pretty much the same, those are where all the thermal contact points were. So I'm going to try and replicate what ASUS did on their one on the EQWB. Tell you what, it's a nice water block. It's chunky too. By the time I'm finished with this build, this is going to be a chunky computer. Please remove before use, well, of course. So, you've got all the sealed and tested points. Should be good. Right. If you're wondering how to do this, this bit takes a little bit of finesse. What I have to replicate on my water block is these are the contact heat points that were with the motherboard that ASUS has done. So as you can see, there are two levels of heat contacts with this heat putty, and that just transfers the heat between both points. Otherwise, the contact is a bit off. So I'm going to try and replicate that using the supplied thermal pad stuff, that's what the actual word is, on these. So I'll go, okay, I have basically to cut it in half a little bit, but not in half. So it'll take a bit of thing. I'm going to use a scalpel, X-Acto knife, whatever you want to call it, Stanley knife will do, to then cut it into the sections that it needs to be. Before I put on my putty, I'm just going to get my isopropyl alcohol, because it's Boozy Tails and there's got to be some sort of booze in this. And, well, technically this is Magenta sTechTails, but whatever. Just give it a bit of a clean, just because I don't want any of the grease or the oil from my fingers transferring to this and affecting anything. It'll be probably minuscule, but there'll be some sort of measurable effect, and I don't want to deal with those consequences. So I'm going to use this Cooler Master cloth that came with a case, and just wipe it down, get all those thumbprints off, fingerprints. Good thing about the alcohol is it just evaporates, so you don't really have to worry about drying it. It's more just wiping off the oil. getting it all good. Now these. You gotta remember, you're replicating this, so thin at the top, thick at the bottom. Even they didn't do like real good with their proportions. Okie. My first layer, put on the top one. Oopsie. Now don't worry if there's a bit extra, because you just cut that off. No need to like push hard, you just chop it down and it's good to go. Okay, so next layer. So I'm not peeling off the blue side, I'm peeling off the sticky side first, just to put that as the down side. Again, just a chop. Again, just putting it along. Now you don't have to go the edge like I did there, because as you see, you know, they've left quite a gap. They've left quite a gap here. I don't know, I just want to use up all this putty stuff. But yeah, once you come to your edge, just get the thing, push down, pull it off. Here we go. Looking good. Final piece. So I just get my back side, the metal part, not the metal part, the solid plastic part. Come along, find my line. Just here. Pop it into place. Go along, that off. And when I get to the end, I'm just gonna get my scalpel, chop it off. And there we go, we've prepped this. Now it's time to prep the motherboard. So with this, these need to go. So I'm just gonna remove these, get them all out of the place. Clears. So these are the normal mounting brackets when I need it. I got this bad boy. Time for my AMD 5950X, the 16 core 32 thread monstrosity on the Zen 3 architecture by AMD. Looking forward to this puppy. You know what? For 1200 bucks, I'm a bit underwhelmed with what I get in the box. I get a piece of foam. It's nice. I'll put that in a fursuit or something. Get a little zigzag thing. Get some instructions. I like instructions. And then I get my CPU, and look, the sticker looks like a postage stamp. It's always daunting installing your CPU. You got to be careful, okay? There are these tiny little pins all along here, and you don't want to bend them. So what you look for, this one, oh, damn, this is a chunky thing. Wouldn't mind weighing this, see how much it weighs. Okay, I'll use my 200 gram scale, see if I'm in line. So this CPU weighs 39.3 grams. It's hefty. It's a hefty babaloo. Right. So there's a little triangle on the edge of your CPU, just here. And there's a little triangle on this. So basically, you're just lining up all your triangles. Once it's in place, just push that down and it is locked in place. Damn, ain't that looking good? Can you see that? See that? See that rising? Got that rising thing? Oh, I got a thumbprint on it. Just give it a bit of a clean with my isopropyl alcohols. Might do the same with my DIMs, my VRM, sorry. See, I can blow alcohol away. Full of hot air. Very good. Now, for the thermal paste that I'll be using, I decided to go with a Hydronaut Grizzly. So, AQ gives you some of their stuff, but Hydronaut Grizzly appears to be quite good, and you know, I want to push this baby. So, I get my Grizzly. Look at that. Thermal Grizzly. It's all black. I like that black. It's got a black tube. And I got my little structured balls. Anything else that come in this? Oh, yes, there's a thing. Original Thermal Grizzly products. Verification code. Cool. Right. All I'm going to do is just stick in the middle, just put a P on. Some people like to go crazy. It just needs a P. That'll smush out to look really good. Don't believe me? Don't believe my little P? That's okay. Let me prove to you. Oops. So that's it in place. And I lift it up. And our little P didn't work. That's why we look at these things. So what I might do, I used to have a specific thermal tool for this stuff. No, I'm spreading it around. So I'm just going to spread all of it around to make sure I get a good contact surface. Cover all of it. Some people pay a fortune for their little CPU thermal paste spreaders. Just using a bit of paper. You just need contact. Yeah, just check. If you're not sure how it's going to look, put some on, pull it off, see how it looks. And if you don't have a good covering, try something else. This is my first time using an AMD CPU. Usually it's Intel and some big fan thing that you screw on real tight. That looks pretty good to me. Now, pull these off. Oops. Later on we'll have a look at the temps too. If the temps don't look right, just pull it off and try it again. So, pop that on there. Now is the tricky bit. Take the new back plate. What I'm going to do is, by holding that in place. Right, now that it's in place, it looks like that. Okay, time to put the rest of the parts back together. Right, so while I was putting on the heat shroud, the microphone cut out. We just thought it was out of battery, charged it. Turned out it got disconnected. So that little tidbit you just saw before was me soldering the aerial back on. I don't know why my hands were so shaky. It's probably because of my Ventolin that I take. It's got a steroid in it and gives me a bit of a shake when I've just taken it. So yay for medication. Anyway, everything's back together. This is secured. Now we got to do the RAM. So we try and do everything we can outside of the case. And the reason why we do that is when you're working inside a case, you tentatively have a little less room to work with and it's a bit more fiddly and there's just a lot of stuff that can go wrong. So you want to do as much as you can outside the case. So we prep the case first. Now we're putting together all we can. Like if you wanted to put together your heatsink inside the case, your liquid cooling, that would be very difficult. Right, RAM. So the RAM I've chosen is, we've got 64 gigs of DDR4. Now I went with some very low latency G-Skill. These are 14, 15, 15, 35. So latency is a bit of a long topic, so I might cover that in a different video, but the lower the latency, the better. So it just talks to everything a lot quicker rather than sitting inside the memory, telling the memory what to do. If that should make sense. Anywho, right. Now, because I'm using dual channel, so if you just put one in, you go, that's one channel, that's two channels. 1, 2. Very simple. If you have a thread ripper or something, you'll have 4 more of these over here, and that will be quad channel. If you're only using one, you put in the 1A slot. If you're using 2, you put it in 1A and 1B, because you want 2 channels talking to the RAM. You don't want all the RAM going to one channel that just bottlenecks you. But because I'll be using all 4, I don't need to worry about that. Now, something I was worried about was with this new with this new block, there's actually a section here that covers and prevents the switch opening all the way out. So you look on the original one, it also had it, but it wasn't as prominent as the EQ water blocks. So I already tested it. I'm pretty sure that, you know, it can go in, but here's the moment of truth. When installing the RAM, look at the short section and the long section. There'll always be a short and a long. Then you look over here and you go, okay, this is the short, that's my long. So you go, right, it goes in this way. So then you just want to line it up, and with a firm click downwards, it'll click into place. Now, when I was talking about dual channel, if I was just installing 2 sticks, the next one will go here. Once again, if you need to force something and you feel you're using too much pressure, you probably are. You need to take it out, have a look at it, slow down, and do it right the first time. Because if you rush it and you force it and you break something, you'll be more upset than if you'd done it quickly. So always do it slowly. Right, next one goes in. Let's make sure everything's lined up and give it a firm click. There we go. The very sharp heat fins. And the final one goes in. There we go. Just gonna have a look at them. Not sure if there's any labels I have to peel off. Anything I have to peel off? Nope. I really like this. Look at the brushed aluminium look, the black and then the silver. That's beautiful. It's really well done. So I got for the 3600 megahertz RAM. I could have gone higher, but you can overclock these, but I was more interested in low latency. 3600 seems to be where it's at. Cool. So now I've got all my RAM installed. There's nothing else I need to do, so I've done my heatsink, I've done my M.2, I have done my RAM. There's nothing else I can do on this outside the case. I'm just going to reposition this cable because there is nothing worse than having cables floating around your motherboard. I want to look clean. I'm gonna go through and cable manage the rest of this board. But first, we need to prep the area to make sure that we can put it in nicely. Ideally, I'd like to lay this down, but because this is such a heavy and difficult case, that might not be an option. But I'll get Dan here to give me a go hand flipping this over. It's very heavy. This case alone is 26 kilos. This water block is another 2 kilos. The motherboard, now that I've finished it, tell you what, let's measure that, see what it weighs at. Gonna have to prop it up on something. Might prop it up on this book just to get a, so let's tear these scales. 0, 0, 0, cool. Right, so this motherboard now weighs 2.28 kilos, just this. I reckon by the time I'm finished this and it's all the water in, my PC will weigh about 30 kilos. Anyway, right. Right, now this case already has it, so I don't need to worry about it. There are risers here, here and here for the screws. So if they didn't have it, you could install them, but these do have it, and all I'm gonna do is line up these points with those holes. So easy does it, into place. Right. Just gonna pull this back out. It's always good to take note of where the holes are. So, there you go. Now once you get 2 or 3 of them in, everything else should just line up. Okie dokie. Get your trusty screwdriver, get your screws, and start popping them in. While I was on the other side of the case, I was just looking at where all the screw points were, and I noticed one next to the RAM on the back that I hadn't put a screw in. So it turns out underneath my M.2 is another secure point. And as it is a heavy board, I want there to be as much on there as possible. So I've taken it off just to put it back on. No big deal. Little bit of annoyance, but you know what? I prefer to have everything in place than to miss it. So that's good. Just have another quick squeeze. Can't see anything else that I've missed, which is good. Now time to put this beauty back on. So you can see our putty was doing its job. So what do you mean about cables being annoying? She got stuck. Excellent. Right, now we can peel these off. Next part, before I do anything else, I'm gonna start to cable manage everything. So I'll plug it all in, manage my cables, then I will do my pipes and the GPU. So the reason why I will do the cables before I do my pipes is because the cables may interfere with the direction of the pipes, and it'll be really hard to plug in cables while your pipes are all run. So this is just the order I'm choosing to do it. You could personally try it the other way. I think you'll find it a little bit difficult. But yeah, time to flip this around and start to manage the cables. So I did unplug a lot, and I will need to add some things. So this is the Corsair RGB fan controller. This is the RGB fan hub that also controls the lighting and allows me to push on top of the case and change the case lights. So I'll need to work out how to integrate this with this as well as the Lion Lee block. So I might end up having a few at the back here, or I might be able to piggy off one of these. Because ideally I don't want too many controllers, there might be a conflict. First thing I'll do is I will come along and untie all my stuff just to start to get an idea of what we've got. So I have two USB 3.0 cables here, and then they've also given me a USB 3.2 or 3.1 header. So those are for my case heading points. Now, as my motherboard only has room for one of these, one of the top won't work until I find out if I can grab an adapter or something. But that's okay. I can deal with that a little bit later. Now, ideally, you don't really want these just running everywhere in the case. You want to use the channels. I'm definitely going to use my channels because it helps. Now the good thing about these ones is that you can double layer your stuff. So you can run cables down there, thread over that, and then run cables that way. So cables and then more cables, if you want to. You also don't have to do it like that, but I think I will. This will have to go to my pump header on the front of the board. We talked about that when I did a review of the ASUS Dark Hero, the location of that, so we know where that is. So I just want to start to manage and tidy up these cables. I want to avoid any cables going through this area as much as I can, because this is where all my power cables will come through. So I don't really want any crisscrossing. I want this clear and open. Now these ones are for the case lights. So this has a lot of LED strips everywhere. So these are to power that. So now that I have those up there, I'll pull these down through there. And at the bottom here, I'll tidy them up with some cable ties. And this is where cable ties really come in handy. So just as I start to get everything out of the way, so I'm going to color code mine for now, just so I'm aware of where everything's at. So just for this little bit here, thread those through. Now, if you want it perfect, you're going to be cutting and re-cable tying a lot of this. So when I say cutting, I mean I put that there, but I know that at some point I might have to come and move that or add cables to it. Now, as for this, looks a bit shonky, but it's okay. I'll get fixed up as I'm going along. I will. Just for now, put one around here. Now, all these were fan headers for the case's original fan. So I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 for the front, 1 for the back. Now I've removed those and I will be using my Corsair RGB one. So if you look at this, this is powered and so is this. So I can draw power from that as well as the motherboard, which means that you can daisy chain a lot of stuff on all of this. This one here is for the pump. Now, if you're ever confused, always don't be scared to look at your manual because you want to put on the right one. I know where mine is, but just to prove a point, we're going to look at it. Bottom left of my motherboard is where, over here, is where my one has the super fancy pump header. So we just go here, and there we go. Pump water, which is number 4, fan and pump headers. You know what? As you do this, you might make another choice. Because I have this whole section here, I could actually thread it through and around through this, which might make it a little bit nicer. If you look carefully here, you will find the bottom edge here is thicker than here. So you just line it up over here. So on this side, the bottom edge is thicker than there. The top is the same. If you get confused about that, it's an interesting one to look at. Tell what, I'm going to keep that line clean because I think aesthetically I will enjoy that more than not. here they are. So we have audio, and then we have power. Once again, don't be scared. Open up your thing and it tells you exactly what we got. So we got the speakers, 21, 23, system panel header. Then we have 14 over here, front audio panel header. So, might look a bit weird if I run this cable all the way over here like that. So I might put that back through and then run it and feed it up over this side. Cool. So that's my front audio. See how there's a little black thing that is blacked out, the rest are got holes in them. And there's, look at that, there's a pin there that doesn't exist. So I just make it so it's the same, and then I plug it in nicely. Now be careful with your pins, as you don't really want to bend them or misplace. Then there's my audio. Now, to make it easy for you so you don't really need to think, they give you one of these. And lining it up is really simple. So along this side and along that side are different things. Reset, ground, LEDs, HD, and C, power. So this is the power, these two ones there. So I find the power and it goes there. That's for the system power. Then I saw a ground restart. So I take my one that says restart and I put it there. And this one is my hard drive LED. And I have my hard drive LED. And there's my front panel connector. Then, looking at this, you see that there is a unfilled space. If you look down here, there is an unfilled space. So then, popping it all together, like so, you have now connected your power. And then you just start to gently train it, because it is quite extreme. You just want to train it along. And the more you train the cable, the more it will just sit where it's needed to sit. So once I cable tie it on the other side there, it'll sit nicely and I won't have to worry about it pulling on the motherboard, which is really what you want it not to do. And everything just sit nicely. Okay, let's spin it back around. Now, because of this cable being so delicate, I'm going to actually put the trainers on that now so that I don't accidentally pull it and damage my motherboard, which is something you really don't want to do. So if I was really finicky, what I can do is you can undo it by lifting the little tab in there, and you can pull it off if you want to reuse these. Pin works better, but whatever. But I don't care. time for fans. So, my Corsair has the LED control, but not a fan thing, but that's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to plug all my case fan headers. So I'll just separate those out quickly. So that's RGB, face cam, pop you out of the way. So there's not a lot of room on this one, so I might just have to thread it over not nicely, which is upsetting. Like I'll be able to pin it there. But yeah, so just gonna connect all these to this. So I have my speed controller sorted, and I'll do it in order. So back one, then my top front, middle front, where'd you go? There we go. And bottom front. And that leaves me 2 more case fans that I can plug in later on. Now I do have the 3 Lion Lee ones up there, but the Lion Lee are a little bit different with the way they work. Get to that in a bit. Okay, now we have RGB light set. So RGB 1 will be Mac, then 2 and 3 and so on. First I need to decide where I want to mount this. So the most logical course would be to mount it here. And they just so happen to give you some nice sticky pad stuff. Give you some nice 3M stuff. So work. It's going to work there, it's just going to be annoying to deal with. That's okay. That's that sorted. Now this will go to a USB point in the case. And so will this one. Now, as for the Lion Lee, let's have a look at you. So this is where your choice comes in. I can plug this one into my Corsair hub, or I can plug it into my Lion Lee one. You know what? Down the line, I probably will get another Lion Lee radiator fan set, so I might just use my Lion Lee. The problem with doing that is that it's no longer controlled by the cooler master set. You know what? There are 3 fans there. I think it's worth putting them over to do it like this. Oh, hopefully my tempered glass leaves me just enough room, otherwise I might have to pull this off and try and stick it somewhere else. Okie dokie. Okay, so I have these two, I have my pump and I have my heatsink. Now both of these have RGB lighting in them. Now normally if you just had one, you could connect it directly to these ports around the motherboard, but because I have two, I'm going to sync them off the one using my very handy cable. So I will plug you in. But once again, if you've got to force it, you're doing something wrong. Now let's train it over there. Give it a little pinch. Spinning it around, I have my pump lights, which I'll plug into here. And I have the one here. Like that. Right. So. Okay, now cable manage this. Now I might just pop this down this side. Okay, so that'll go into there like that. And then the same again with these ones. So that'll go to a fan controller. And then this one will go to my USB in the front case. Same with my Corsair, and then the Lion will have one again. So I'm going to tidy this all up, and using movie magic, it'll be done. To the best I can, I've tried to neaten this up, tidy it up. Now, there will be problems for me, mainly because I'm using 3 different types of LEDs. I have my case ones, which are controlled by the case Cooler Master control unit. So this controls my fans, it controls a number of things. It also has a button on top of the case which changes the mode. Then I have my Corsair ones, and those are my front and my back, and then I have the Lion ones up here. So this this case only has 2 5-volt pins. So these are RGB as well, but these are 12 volt. Same with up here. You have the 5 and you have the 12. So because of that, I could only give synchronicity to 2 of my boxes. So the boxes sync with the motherboard, so the motherboard can be like, hey, I want you all green, and it'll all go green because it's connected to it. As a result, I got creative, which I was always told off as a kid, but you know what to do. So my Lion is connected here. So my fan and my RGB and my fan. From there, I took, this is power, which is needed. And then I have this one here. One of it goes to a fan speed so that the motherboard can tell, hey, CPU needs to cool down, which will tell it to speed up. And then this one here, I have connected to a splitter, which is this bit here. And then that bit I have plugged into my last remaining control wire. So let's pray that this works. If it doesn't, I'll fiddle with it. Or I'll have to decide which company's fans I'm going with. Anyway, now into the next bit. Doing the power. So, all my control units, all controlled by the SATA 15 pins, and my power supply unit happens to be able to power a ton of them. Otherwise, you know, I'll be in trouble. So, before I plug that in, what I'll do is I'll get these and lining them up, I'll plug in my first two. So this control board, it's very thirsty. So it takes two of these, where these only take one. Okay, then I have two left. So I'll thread it like that. Just to make sure everything's even. Then I'll get you, and difficult to see, but I'm gonna plug you in back here. Okay, then with you, I will connect you to you. Oops. Yep, that's my landing one. Then down here, I have my Corsair control board, and I'll plug you into there. Kollie You. And just tidy up everything. Now, for the front of the case. Obviously, I've got to power my motherboard. I have that for the extra juice. That's if you're doing like a lot of CPU intensive stuff. I'm going to plug that in. But if you're ever unsure if you need to plug that in for your CPU or not, consult your guide. So this comes with all the motherboards. Yours may not look like this because you may not have ASUS, but this is important. This is your Bible. You consult this whenever you need guidance. And the guidance is, do I need to plug that in? So you find the appropriate section, which is power connectors, 2 to 9. So I go 2 to 9. There we go. Do not connect 4-pin plug only. The motherboard may overheat under heavy usage. Ensure that the 8-pin power plug connects to the 4 plug. Cool. So I can do those two or just that one. This is a definite. As we all know, this is a major one. So if you only plug that one in, which is this port here, it's saying the motherboard could overheat and be damaged. So you can plug just that one in or both of them in. So I'll do both of them because I want to do some overclocking and run some tests. So never just plug into that, as my Bible just said. Make sure you plug that one only or both of them, never just the 4-pin. Otherwise you will do damage. But in saying that, I'm not going to use my black cables that came with this. See all my black cables over here? And my messy workstation. I'm actually going to use one tick. I got me another Corsair product. This is the Pro power supply cable unit, because my build has two themes, white and black, with a silver outside. Wow, this is annoying. Oh, here we go. With my scalpel, I will open this up. Yes. Cool, yes. Come on. Excellent. So, the all-important main connection one. Oh, it's a longin'. It's interesting. Okie dokie. As you would have seen from my video before, I will be putting a ASUS Strix 3090 OC White Edition. So this is the special edition. It comes with that fancy ring, which I will be doing a video about because it's just really cool. And yeah, there's a hidden secret to that ring, and I just want to show you guys what that's about. We'll play with that later. So then we have get a wide shot, a whole box. Oh, she chunky. Ain't that a beautiful sight? Give her a nice polish. I don't know why it has marks on it. Peel off the stickers. Gib sticker. So it looks a little better without the stickers on. Before that, with the stickers on, it looked a bit ratty, but once they're off, it really does start to shine. Like, I love what they've done with the color scheme. You know, you've got little reflective streaks in amongst the white, like it's matte white, and then it's like a reflective white, which gives you this beautiful like off tandem color. It's really cool. Okay, so GeForce RTX. Now, depending on the size of your graphics card, depends on the number of these you'll need to remove. Because this is a hecking chonker of a graphics card, I'm going to remove 3. That's 1, oops, 2, and 3. Okay, now the way this mounts, it's quite simple. First you remove your safety guard for your pins. You open this up, make sure that's open. Open will be pushed down. Then you want to wow, there is so very little room. Okay. Once you have it in place, you just check around the side of it. So like, if you look around the front, just check that everything's in position here. Should be, these little feet will sit in there. And you want to, come back around here. You want to just snap it in position. Which I cannot because my brackets from my water tower are in the way. Oh boy. What a fun evening. Well, this is a custom build, so there will be problems. Like having ever so slightly not enough clearance over here to do your motherboard. To do your GPU. That's okay. That's an easy fix. And when I say easy, I mean it'll involve me unscrewing my plate, moving it over. Okie dokie. So, with much umming and ahhing and consulting our resident aeronautical engineer, we decided that if there has to be only be three, there can be three. So there are three brackets holding it up. So the resident aeronautical engineer's worry was that due to these ones pulling down and this one pushing up, that there would be a twisting motion or constraints. What's the word used? Contortion. There would be contortion of the block. Torsion. There would be torsion of the block due to there not being one here. But because it's solid and it's not really moving and it's not a moving part, it's not constantly being bumped, it's a minimalized risk. It's still a risk, but you know, not that big of an issue. I also took the time while the block was out because I foresaw another problem that would have been painful to deal with once the graphics card was in place and the pipes were run, was that I am currently waiting on one part for this. And that will go here at the back, and that will be a float valve. There'll be a float valve just there to allow easy drainage of the water. So I'm hoping that this finger width of room will be enough. If not, I'll have to put a valve there and move a pipe down here and have a little exit relief valve there. Anyway, whatever could go wrong with this build has gone wrong so far. So let us proceed. You have everything run nicely. Then we get our graphic card, our worthy graphic card. Now, why am I putting this in now when I haven't run my pipes? That is a very good question. The reason why I'm putting this in before my pipes is one, to see where everything will flow, where everything's going to sit, and how it will work. So, once again, making sure that's down, and with hopefully little to no effort, we can put this into place. Oh, solid click. Now, well, that sits there like that. It's resting on that screw, but I don't like the idea of that. And oh my God, was my measurements not perfect or what? Just by happenstance, I have this perfect gap. Like, that is amazing. I am so happy with that. Okay, gonna get my screw boys and fix this bad puppy into place so it don't go nowhere, because that would be very bad. Okay, so After much grunting and heaving, because it's a lot easier if you turn the case on the side, but because of all my cables and my boxes, I didn't actually want the full force of my case on the side. Like this would have protected it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to scratch it. So I did it a harder way. I put it in this angle. I've also reinstalled my gremlin cover. I don't actually know what it's called, but I just think it keeps the gremlins out of your computer case so they can't muck it up and cause problems. Take note of your friends' computers who are having problems, they're missing their gremlin cover. True fact. It's a joke. Don't quote me on that. Okay. Now, what's missing now? It's this. And I'm sure you picked it straight away. Now we got to power this bad thing. This is the ASUS 3090. This is crazy hungry. So, because it's crazy hungry, ooh, sticker. Because it's crazy hungry, we will need, I might leave that there. I don't have any reason to take that off. Maybe later, I don't know. Because it's crazy hungry, we will need a ton of power for it. Oh, I need 3 of them. Look at that. Didn't even realize. 3 of these puppies. Now, go through, read the manual. English, page 2. So it says, insert it, connect it. So basically what it's saying is that everybody gotta have a square hole. If you don't got no square hole, we don't want it. Gotta have a square hole. Okay, they all got square hole. That's good. That's why one of the square holes is different from the rest of the square holes. Okay, so I went over the documentation. Instead of connecting these 2 to 1, I'm just gonna have 3 separate ones to the power supply. Just to be safe, because it's given me 3, I'm gonna use 3. Now I took off, there was a shroud here, I've taken that off just to access the power supply easier rather than reaching my hands around and getting all funny. I was like, you know what, I'll bite the bullet and undo the 5 screws. So, undo the 5 screws. Once again, just gonna train the cables. Pop them in, doop-a-doop-doop. 1, and then that one go right in there. Look at that. Cool. Now, because I have them all sitting out in front of me like this, I can straight away plug them into where they're meant to go. So, this one, gonna. Second one, I'm gonna put here. And then my third one, now hopefully that doesn't blow up my card. So, just like before, I'm gonna start to train my cables. Now, the good thing about this is I just need to train them to go underneath and this way, because the way the board slips in will push them into the correct position. And it'll nicely hide all this tangled mess of spider webs and everything else that's going to come live down here. All right. So, slowly start to comb it through and then pinch and go back and just rinse and repeat as needed. If it becomes difficult to do, just look at where the tangle is, comb through once again. So comb through, untangle, train. Now for this, you get Samsung SSD. Now, mounting SSDs has gotten a lot more simple. In fact, you just get these little puppies. Now, a bit about my hard drives and why I chose them. SSD because it's a 2 terabyte, it's a Samsung, and the read and write speed is, I believe on this model is, this is 570 or 600 megabytes per second, the read and write speed, whereas on the M.2, that is 7,000 megabits per second and 6,500 read speed, which is awesome. Where are these? Just getting all the screws. Now, how do these work, you may ask? Well, very simply, on the mounting bracket, oops, like this will sit in the case inside, and it'll just sit there like that. See? Just straight on there. Really simple. And it'll sit underneath my cover bracket, and it's going to look pretty good. Pretty happy with that. Might even put it there. Okay. Okie dokie. Ran into a problem. When I picked up these cables, so these are the Corsair Pro PSU cable kit, I picked them up from Scorptech and I was like to the guy, cool, these will run with my power supply. He goes, yeah, they're just cables. Like, he was very blasé about it when I picked it up. Fast forward, I went to test to see if all the stuff turned on, and nothing happened. There was no power to the motherboard, there was nothing. Well, that's weird. Had a look, everything was plugged in correctly, wasn't working. Plugged in all these black cables, it worked. So, took these back to Scorptech. They had someone there who knew what he was talking about, and he says, mate, these cables are only for Corsair power supply units. I have a Cooler Master power supply unit. Now every time I tried to power it, I could hear this thing shutting down. So the whole system might be fried because someone said that this product was fit for purpose and it's not. Anyway, I'll do a whole video on this about why they're different and why interchangeable cables on a modular system are not interchangeable across brands, and why they're specific to certain power supply units. It's really interesting, super messed up by the industry that it's not standardized. Like, all these are standardized, but the way they put the rails out in the power supply unit, according to this guy, is different. So I'm going to go read up on that. You know, 2 people, myself and the guy that gave me these, made the mistake. So I'm thinking other people might make the same mistake too. I'll get to the bottom of it and yeah, work out what to do with these. Because under Australian consumer law, I can totally return these. Fit for purpose. Anyway, neither here nor there. But yes, this is why this now has black cables in it. Because these safely power my system and whatever. So anyway, I'll put these aside. Over there. Who's a good boy? Yeah, you're a good boy. Look at you. Right. I'm on to the final step of this. Which is this. It has been a journey to get here. I'm still waiting on one part, and that is a relief valve so that I can drain the water away safely and not have it go throughout my whole system. Because, well, you can do it, it's just when you go to maintain your loop, you want to have that relief valve. So if you're wondering why at the start of this video I was clean shaven, by the end of it I'm not, it's because it's been a few days and this has been sitting here and I've been anxiously wanting to get it completed, but what to do? It's what happens when you buy all the parts and then you forget one. Just one part, so crucial. Anyway, I will be using the thermal take These are 16mm tubes for this. So these are the compression ones. These are really nifty. So what happens is, I have a little groove down there. And I just undo that. So, how cool is this, right? So you take this, right, over here, and these are compression tubes, right? They keep the water in via compression. So, looking at this, say this is the end of it, slide that on, and then with this upwards, and the O-ring there too, put the O-ring on, those on like that. Okay, so then what will happen is this will screw into the other one, and it has 5 layers of tubes. So there's one O-ring there, that's one, and then inside it's got 2, 3, 4 O-rings. Those are those little black things just there. Those prevent the water going through it. So even if it gets past the first O-ring, which is here, and this will sit over it like that, even if it gets past this one, so the water comes through and goes over there, it's got 3 more rings it needs to get past before it'll leak. So Thermaltake had a fun day making that. And then yeah, once you get it in position, do that. The idea is that it sits there and it's all good. When it comes time to do your custom loop, there are some do's and don'ts. Don't put your pump above your radiator. So you don't want the pump to be the highest point. Obvious reason, air will collect at the top of the loop, and if air collects in your pump, it's going to be running dry, and that's really not a good idea. Put your radiator at the top. You can put your radiator at the bottom, as long as the pump is not the highest point, you're fine. Second is, think it out. Plan out what you plan to do. So, my one is a bit, finicky, as normally I would have this come out and then go up, but I have my chonker big graphics card in the way. So, what I'm gonna have to do is move the goalpost. So, I'm gonna have to get my fittings, and I'm going to have to start putting where I want it to go. Now, why have I put it? Oh, that's annoying. Look, I screw this in, and it bites. It bites just here. That's so annoying. Because I want to bring it up to go through there. But this thing is so big, it's grinding on the cover plate. Oh well. That's what happens when we mix and match. I'm going to go through and put the rest of these fittings on. So you're going to have one come here. Now, whoops, where'd it go? So what I'll do is I'll run it up, then curve it round, up again, over, down to my first. From here we'll go up, over to the second. This will come down, around the second, so this will be the third, following in line with that. So I'll need to get this first one as close as possible to this, and then it'll go down, and then right here it'll touch into there. So yeah, there'll be a bit of fiddling to make sure each one sits nicely, but just plan out how you're going to run your tubes. Good way to do it is get all your fittings and just start putting them into the position that they're going to need to be. Okay. Now, very important, You may think they're tight by tightening this. They're not. You're gonna have to use your tool to tighten them up. Because what you don't want is you to think it's tight and it's not. So you're just gonna go through and tighten everything. It doesn't need to be super tight, but just, you know, tight enough that there's not a lot of give when you give it a little twist. You don't want to over tighten it and break something. Now, if we look at the Lion Lee water block, we can see that there are multiple sections. Why is that? What you would do is you would use these as ins and outs to distribute water to your graphics cards if you're water cooling those. I will be at a later date to see the performance, or if you have a second radiator, you would have one of those coming in. So, you know, cold water flows through one, through the other one, and then into the main reservoir area. There are a multitude of ways to utilize these, and really it's however you want to do it. But as long as it flows. So, you know, you can't just have it come into here and stop, because the water won't go anywhere. Obviously, you know, you need to have this off so that, you know, radiator comes in here, flows through there into the second radiator, or, you know, you can do a loop there through another radiator, but it always needs to flow back into here in order to fill up the reservoir. Some reservoirs look like tubes. This reservoir looks like a badly colored in oblong thing. Cool, now we're gonna do these. So, these, just gonna take the screwdriver and gently undo the plugs for the radiator. Okay, these are just holding the radiator in place. Gonna gently undo all these. Keep those, you don't know when you'll need them again. So I'll take these, and with the luck, install them. Once again, you're going to get your So, as you can see, that's really tight. You're gonna have a good time keeping that all together. All right, I have to take this off. Oh, it pops out. Now, once your pipes are in place with these, don't go yanking on the tubes thinking, you know, it'll hold it like it's bolted to a wall. It's not going to behave the way you think it will, mainly because it's just using rubber grommets that are slightly thinner than the exterior diameter of your tube. So these are 16, so this grommet's probably 15 that compresses out to 16 with a flush lining of the metal on the inside. Basically what that means is the metal sits flush, the O-rings compress against that, forming the seal. So it's not, you know, you can't hang off it, don't pull on it, don't yank on it, especially if it's got water running through it, because you will cause a leak because it will just pop off. It will take a bit of force, but yeah, don't mess around with it. It won't be fun. Okay, next one in. Still pretty bummed out my cables don't just work. Thank you, Guy, for getting my hopes up. Yeah. You get a good view. Cool. Right, there we go. Now, one thing I was thinking I could possibly do was, for my first run, I could link that one to that one. So create just a U channel, a really long U channel, and go from there to there, pump the water through here, which will then flow a lot of different ways to the CPU. It's a bit convoluted. I don't think it'll look as good. I'm not going to do it. Right. For the pipe bending, once you have all your fittings in and you know how it's going to run, so I have 1, 2, 3 flows that I'll need to make, so 3 tubes. So 1, 2, 3. Very simple loop. 2 pipes that push, 1 pipe that returns to reservoir. What I mean is it pushes to CPU, CPU pushes to radiator, radiator then returns to the reservoir. Now, how does one shape a PETG pipe? There are different types of this. There's acrylic, there's all sorts, but I'm using the Thermaltake, whoops, PETG V-tubular system, which is what I've chosen. Now Thermaltake, understand that you need to do something with these, e.g. make it go in a direction you want. So they provide you with the option to purchase a hard tubing bending kit. Now, there is technique with this. You don't just heat up the tube and then forcefully bend it around this, because you really don't need to do it like that. But this thing is very helpful. So what I'm going to do is, with all of these, I'm going to secure it to a block, like so. I got that one so I can make multiple little bends. I'll just drill those in to hold it in place. So these are obviously your bending tubes. So you heat up the tube and you bend it around that to get your angles. So if I was doing my my U-shaped, I would use this one, the 180, to loop it in, to then use that to push the water out to avoid the scraggly, whoops. Just dropping stuff. Oh no, I damaged it, I'm really sad now. Anyway, put that there before I drop it again. Yeah, to avoid the scraggliness, but I think the scraggliness will look good. Next tool, probably one of the most important tools in this kit. Second most important tool. There's an even more important bit, but I'll get into that. This is your tube cutter. Why do you need a tube cutter? Well, I tell you what, you're not going to use this whole thing. And you wouldn't want to use this whole thing because it would be so loopy and loop-de-loop that the Joker from Batman would look and think you're crazy. So, how does that work? Very simple. So I'm going to use this end because I was fiddling with it earlier. You put your tube in at the point of which you want to cut it. So I want to cut it there. Then what you do is you zip it up to the point. So you're just twisting this, and that applies pressure on the tube. So you don't want to crack it. Then what happens is you twist it around, and as you twist, so I'm twisting with both hands. So as I twist with this one, I twist with this one, giving it a little bit of a tighten. So every one turn, I give it a quarter turn. And what that does is it cuts through your pipe evenly and nicely. Now, if it's not tight enough, you will not cut through nicely. With one cut, you will have some issues. But it takes practice. So when it feels a bit loose and I can twist it in my hand quite easily. I just tighten this end up a little bit more until we cut all the way through. It's like a pizza cutter for a circle, for a cylinder. Pizza cutters do cut circles. I'm silly. But yeah, so twist to it all the way through, just about there, I can feel it. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And there we go. Perfect, look at that. So, that is what the tube cutting's for. And then you're left with an offcut. So, I was a bit, what's the word? Impatient with the first cut. I just wanted to cut it off and bend it and just play around with it. But this one's a lot better, it's a lot evener. It's almost 90 degrees. Now, if you're worried about this end bit here where it's discolored and scratched, you really don't need to worry about that, as when you get your, where are some more? Got some more here. Yeah, there we go. When you put your tube in your compression fittings, what happens is, I feel like you're at an angle. What happens is it covers up those marks. So all you'll be left with is shiny, nice tube. Okay, so don't worry about that. Just take it slow. Now, this thing, what's this for? Well, when you cut it, and I'll use this as an example, when you cut it and you're in a rush and you don't do it nicely, you can be left with this rough edge, which is not, it's not level, which is really not good for your compression tube. So if I put that there, the bottom here is really nice, really level. This top, it's not. So this is a point to it, just cleans it out, gets rid of the internals, same with that side. And any damage that's done to the tube is meant to mitigate it and just ensure that there's no sharp plastic edges that can damage your compression fittings. Now, this one is probably the most important tool in this whole kit. Out of everything here, this one's the most useful, and with like everything else here, you can make do and you can do things to get around not having those tools. You can't without this. This is a silicone insert that goes inside the tube. Oh, pop it in this side. So it goes in the tube like that. Why would you need a silicone tube inside another tube? Well, when you get your heat gun, which I have one over here, and you heat this up, without this, when you go to bend it, what might happen is, and what will probably happen because you won't heat it up enough and you'll be very gung-ho and you'll bend it, it'll cause the tube to kink, which will then squeeze that area. Like when you get a straw from Macca's, or whatever you call it wherever you are, but when we go to Macca's, you get the straw and you go to bend it, it'll curve for a little bit and hold the shape and the diameter, but it'll just reach a focal point and bend. And there'll be a compression in that bend. This is designed to mitigate that. So because the whole tube is hot, it's all good, it goes cool, you can bend it. This doesn't compress. So if I squeeze that, it ain't bending, it ain't squishing. So it forces the tube to hold its shape and prevents kinks from forming when you're bending your tubing, which is the most useful thing in any of it. Otherwise, you'd just be sitting there, okay, carefully bend up, it kinked again. So, this, very important. And you get longer ones. You get ones going the entire length. So, this end was a bit bad. So, when I say that this fixes stuff, look at that. Just gonna widen it, and there we go. It allows the tube to go back in. Well, When you're a fool like me and you've put your tube all the way down and you can't pull it out and you can't blow it out, get your ramrod, put it down your tube, hope to God there's no bends in it, and give it a little push. And there she is, right as rain at the end. It's pretty cool. I'm happy I have a ramrod kicking around. Right, hopefully I won't need that again. Just don't put it all the way down. I am going to quickly secure these to this, and then we'll get to that. So let me just drill some holes. Okay, I have secured these to my block of wood. Why have I done that? So that when I pull, I have something, you know, to counteract the weight. It's not just freely floating around. You can do it however you want. That's how I've decided to do it. So I have removed my first tube, my first compression area. Now this one, I want it to come up and then twist that way. So my first twist is going to be probably the most difficult, simply for its location. So what I'll do is, using this as a guide, I go, right, it'll be sticking out of the hole, pretty much like that. Now, other thing I forgot to mention, have a permanent marker on standby. You will need this. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark my first area that I want to keep straight, and then my bend, well, looking at it, how far do I want my bend to come? So I probably want my bend to start around here, and I want it to finish probably about there. It's going to be a very tight bend. I don't know how well this one's going to work, just because of the way it is, but give it a go. Something like this might be easier if I start the process of the bend down here and then cut it off. But I'm experimenting, I'm going to lose this anyway. Let's see how this goes. I'm going to turn this on to warm it up. I'm going to set it to about that sort of heat. I'm going to hold it so the heat's directly there. I'm going to hold it over that line, and I'm just going to gently rotate it. And you'll feel it when it starts to give. Now, so as you can see, it bends now, but I heated it up too quickly, which caused a deformed bubble layer to start. You don't want that. So the distance you want to hold it is more up here. Okay, and you want to slowly heat it up. If you hold it here, yeah, it's going to heat really quick, but as a result of that, you're going to get those bubbles. So as I got those bubbles in it, it's kind of killed it for me. Okay, so held it too close, you get these heat bubbles. So basically what that is, the plastic going, hey brah, I'm burning, and these bubbles form. Second thing is, I was right, you can't, it's going to be very difficult for me to bend this and have this bend start here. So what I'll do is, I'll cut this piece off, start again, have the bend start down here, and then cut it down to size for the end bit. Okay, so starting again, a longer tube from here to here will be my bend radius. Now why is it like that? Well, I just did a rough estimate of where the 90 degrees ends. It was about there, so see how that turns out. Now once I have that, I will do the carpenter's trick. So most of this I'm using knowledge that comes from, you know, mucking around with cabinetry and carpentry work. So distance is key. Okay, about here. And you just want to keep rotating it like a pig on a spit, or tofu on a rotisserie, whatever. You just want to get it evenly heated and slowly heated up. And you'll feel it when it's starting to give, you know, and you'll feel it when it's in the heat jet stream. Now, if I move it over here, it's not in the jet stream, but if I move it here, it is, and you can feel where it's hitting. So you just want to slowly rotate it, get it nice and evenly heated. And this will take a bit to get used to. See, it's already starting to bend, so I'm just going to keep it going, moving it up. Already getting a little few air bubbles. See how it's wobbling? Getting there. So already again, you can see that, you know, maybe I've got it a bit too hot because I'm getting those air bubbles again. Now that it's freely bending, I might just give it a little bit more. Freely bending, put it here, and I'm just going to hold it in place on this to keep it at that bend angle we want. So I'll just keep it there until it's cool enough that it won't disform. So it's going to keep it in place long enough for it not to change its shape again because it's gotten cool. So some people like to dip it in water. Look, this is a patience game. You want to be as patient as possible. Don't go sticking it in water because you'll end up with some weird shape that's not 90 degrees, or, you know, just have patience, stick with it. It'll happen. So let's pull it away. There we go. So I tried to bend it as best as I could around the bubbles that formed, just to hide it. So it's still pretty warm. I don't really want to take it away until, you know, it's cool to touch. Like, well, it's cool to touch now. I just want it, you know, less than hot water from the tap. Right now it's about hot water from the tap. I want it, you know, just a mild hot day water from the tap. It's cold. Maybe we're blowing it. See how I blow on my pipes? I blow them to cool them real good. That way my pipes are real good. Otherwise, if you don't blow on your pipes and you stick it in water, you can, well, the pipes might, like, you know, not come out too good. Yeah. So blow, don't water them. They're not plants. You're not trying to grow a plant. You're trying to cool a pipe to a point where it's usable. Not to the point where you're like, oh my God, it's not going good. I don't know what I'm talking about. I just talk in accents when I'm don't know what to do. Anyway, I think that's cool enough. Just looking at it. Now, that turned out pretty good. Not gonna lie, like, there's some bubbles there, which is annoying, but that's gonna happen. That's gonna happen when you're an idiot like me and you have your heat too high. So I'm gonna turn that down so that it heats up slower. So I'm gonna take my trusty blue crap that has guided me. So yeah, just to get the isopropyl alcohol off, just do this. There we go. All clean, all nice, all steady. Steady as she goes. Right, and there we have a nice 90-degree bend. Now, as you can see, those bubbles formed in the plastic because I heated it up too much. You can see there's a bit of warping here. So yeah, that's it's not ideal. Look, you might go through meters of tubing trying to get it right, or you might go, she'll be right. Problem with those bubbles is that those are weakness. Potentially they could let water out. So if you're worried about that, plug the end and blow. Seems pretty good. Now here's the fun bit. You're okay. My tube's gonna sit like that, right? It's gonna come out and go immediate boink. So how do you cut it? Well, you get your marker, have a little look at it. Oops. Now it's done. You get your little insert shaper. Cool. So there is our first. Now, when I say this is going to be difficult, annoying, and a bit fiddly, I really do mean it. We have our first one there like that. It's going to look like that when it's sitting inside of it. You go, cool. Now, if you don't get your bend right, what's going to happen is that when you put it in its flush, it's going to be pointing some weird angle. So you really got to make sure you get your 90 degrees right. This 90 degrees goes perfectly here and then suddenly tapers off. But it's a first run, so you just have fun. Right, next bit. Oops. That's where your tube comes in handy. You can also use it as a measuring tool. Right. This is where things get tricky. So it comes up like that. I want it. And that way. So what's going to mean is once I've heated this, I'll need to get it back on my 90 degrees. I'm going to have to turn it. And then once it's turned that way, it's probably easier if I show you this way. So right now it's doing this. I want it to then do that and then that. So it's going to be a strange kink system. It's all part of the fun. You don't do this because you don't like doing this. You do this because you want to make something incredible and show it off. So, make something incredible. So as I do this, I keep it careful to make sure that it's at the proper angles. Just gonna make sure it's all in place. So that time I took my time heating it up and making sure that as I did it was uniform, and heated up a larger area so that you didn't see, a bend and then deformation. There's our first bend. So you just give it a good look, make sure everything's sitting where it should sit and how it should sit. Now that I have my first part, so it's going to come up here, this is where it gets interesting, because I'm going to want to bend it down and then over. So this is going to be a complicated loop. This next section I got to be careful with, because I hope that's Jack's hair. A crack in my tube. I don't know if that's my dog's hair or a crack in the tube. I think it's my dog's hair. Okay.
That's a hair.
Yeah. This is where your 3D spatial awareness really comes in handy. So it's coming out, up, over. Then I want to bend it down and up. So basically I wanted to come up here, over, in, up as tight as possible, and then back down again. So yeah, this is an interesting part. Right, let's see if I can do it. Okay, so I have bent all my rods, just giving it clean, getting all the ink off. What I'm also going to do is, because I had to flush them with water for a little bit to get the tubes out, I am going to get rid of the water by putting the alcohol down the tube, shaking it about, and flushing it. I'm doing this for a couple of reasons, really. One is, if there are any nasties in there, should get rid of them. 2, I get to get rid of it. And 3, the alcohol will just evaporate off. You know, if I want to speed up that process, I can get the old hot air blower there and put that over it. Should. So put some on the table. It's just evaporating away. Evaporation time.
Sorry, that got on my face.
Okay, it's one done and cleaned. I'll just do that for the rest, and should be good. To make sure everything's clean and nice and dandy. So see, I just got some pen marks on there for where I measured it. Like that. Give it a vigorous rub off. Rub off those marks. Love the smell of isopropyl in the morning. So I've already pre-put my tube ends on, and those just very easily slide on and off. So you take them like this, you slide it on. First you slide your O-ring on, like so. You slide your next one on, bring it to the end like that, and then it's ready to be secured onto your mounting points. Dry out my tube, make sure we're all hunky-dory. Last one. That should get rid of the water and make sure my tube is nice and clean. Cool. Now comes the fun part. I get to put my tubes on. But before I do that, there's one part I need. So, I've just gone to M-Wave and picked up the final parts. This is why my build has taken so long, because I needed these. Why do I need these parts? Well, there's a simple explanation for that. When you drain your loop, you need to be able to take the water out of it. There's a couple of ways you can do that, but the safest way is having a ball valve. Why would you use a ball valve? Basically what happens is once it's attached to the water block, like so basically imagine it's in there, it's attached, blah 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 blah, oopsies, all attached. So before you open your ball valve to drain your system, you could have one of these, which is for a flexible hose. So this is a 16mm flexible hose attachment. Basically what would happen is you put that in, it's got the hose attached to it on the end, so you take your hose, you put it in your bucket, open up the valve, and the water would drain into the bucket, safely removing the water from the system, which prevents you having to put buckets right up close to catch it. So this is what's taken time. So I ordered this 2 weeks ago and it's just arrived from N-Wave, which is a technological retailer in Sydney. Right, now, hopefully I can fit this at the back here, so I want to put it in this piece. Okay, so I'm just gonna spin this around. Now, we weighed this earlier. Without water, it is 33 kilos. That is chonky. Like my dog weighs 42 kilos, so this thing is 10 kilos lighter than his. It's a big block. Okay. Okay. There we go. I've turned around. Okay. Come over here. So, I'm gonna see if I can get this onto that one there. I'm thinking my chances are slim. Yeah. So that's not gonna fit, as that's at an angle. So this one is no good for there, which is fine. I'll just use the front one. Okay. Right. You want to pick the lowest point in your reservoir to drain from. I would normally pick that point just there, but because I don't actually have the clearance at the back of this with the GPU and the positioning, there's this end bracket just there, I can't actually plug it into this one behind. So because I don't have the clearance, I'm gonna have to put it here. This is the second lowest point in the loop, which is fine. So I'll put it there. Okay. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna undo this. And because this is female to female, I got a male to male to install it in. Okay, there we go. It's tight. Now I'll get you in, like so, and I will screw you on, like that. Here's hoping that doesn't leak. Now, to make sure it stays tight and doesn't leak, I'm just going to put that in there like that. So I don't know why that spin like that. It's a bit weird. Cool. Alright. Just hang that about there. Safe, secure. You might hang a little some fluffy dice later. Hang some fluffy dice off that. Cool. Next part. Time to install my loop. For something like this, you want to take the most difficult piece first, which will be anything at the furthest point of screwing. So if you come look down here, up in there, I have 2 contact points. I'm going to put in the furthest point because my hand will have trouble putting anything up there if I put it in the front one. You just wanna, so you wanna get it so that this is in line. And these are really simple. So your ring obviously your cap goes on first, then your O-ring, and then this compression tubing ring goes next. So now that it's free of liquid, definitely free of liquid, on 100% free of liquid, I'm going to get it in position. So And like that. Start to screw it into place. One. Keep screwing it until it's tight. The second one, which is here. Like that. Coolie Patoolies. That's the first one in. Then I'll take my second one here. And then last but not least is my from the pump to my CPU. And the good thing about doing this tubing is that when it comes out wrong, it's 16 bucks for another 3-4 tubes. So you can keep practicing your skills over and over again with your loop if you want. Now it's time to fill it. To fill the loop, we're going to use some demineralized water. This is ultra steamed distilled water. Why do you use distilled water? Water in itself, pure H2O, doesn't conduct electricity, believe me or not. Very surprising. What actually conducts electricity within water is the impurities. So it contains little bits of minerals. Those minerals are what conduct and form the conductant for electricity to move through. So if you use distilled water, if any of them happens to leak in your system, you minimize the potential damage to your system. Still not good, but it's one way to, lessen the damage. The other reason is, whatever parts are in this, it's going to limit corrosion. Water was about $5. It is less than 1 part per million of dissolved solids and less than 2 microsiemens per cubic centimeter. pH level of 6. So, don't drink this. It looks like water, it tastes like water, don't drink it. It'll strip all the important stuff out of your system because it's basically a sponge looking for minerals. Now, this is what I'm going to use to fill it. This has had plain water through it and a few other whatnots. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flush this through this 3 times over to then make sure that there is no water left over because I don't want anything conductive going into my system. So I'm going to go away, do this, and then come back. Okay, so I have taken some distilled water, flushed this out a number of times. Now I am getting some paper towel for safeties and putting it around where the pipe could possibly leak. So if any of the pipe leaks here, because this is where it possibly might leak, I am got paper towel to catch it. So I'm going to go jump on the other side. Now I've got my pump hooked up, which I had unplugged before. Everything's all hooked up, all my fans are on. Moment of truth. Let's see if this thing will start to filter around. Get in, you bastard. Don't give me attitude. There's the plug. I win. Okay, and then you go in here. Okay. Righty. Oh. Do we have lights?
Lights.
There's lights in the case?
In the case. I'm not seeing any.
How about now?
Not yet.
No lights at all?
No.
What? You're not seeing a lit up start button?
Hang
Okay, so I'm gonna put it in here. Begin to fill it up. Okay, so what we do is, once you have your liquid through to here, so by no means will this fill up the whole case. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to start it up, that'll engage the pump, and then hopefully it'll drain that and start to fill up the loop. And then before it does that, stop. We've partially filled in the loop. It's just a delicate game so that the backflow of this doesn't come out the valve. Because if it does come out the valve, I'll be very upset. So yeah, I'm just gonna top up this water again. Thank God this is a bar, otherwise, you know, might be in trouble. But yeah, as you can see, some is already, this loop is completely filled. There's a few air bubbles, but we keep pushing through and get it done. Oops. Okay, so from this point you kind of just level out the water so that it's just to where you want the fill line to be. I'm just going to bring it up to a nice position, try to overfill the loop, and come around, take a look at it. Now, see, it's gonna keep pushing some of these bubbles through. But why it does that, you're just gonna have a look at everything and make sure you got no leaks. And the best way to check that is take your paper towel, inspect it, just pot it around, careful not to get it in your fans, because that'll be bad, and yeah. Just gonna This project has been crazy. Like, I'm just attaching my back panel to cover it up. I have been wanting the latest and greatest for a while. So I scraped and saved for this build. I waited for the new technology, finally arrived. I've had some setbacks, but when you're doing a custom PC, you will have setbacks occasionally. Some guys won't, some guys will. It happens. I've had a few setbacks. It's demoralizing because you've waited so long. So literally, this is 6 months in the making for me, but since I got all the parts, it's taken me 3 weeks to get to this point. And it's just blown my mind how long it's taken. But it's just one of those things. What's coming? Now that this is done, I'm gonna put it together, load some stuff on. We're gonna do an episode of benchmarking it, seeing what it's got. This thing has 14, 15, 38 or 35 low latency 64 gig RAM sticks. That is crazy. It's paired with the 3090 OC ASUS Strix model graphics card with the AMD 5950X. That is a 16 core, 32 thread CPU on a Dark Hero motherboard, which has some crazy overclocking abilities. So once I get this set up, I'm gonna have a play around with it. We're gonna do a benchmarking with its stock. Then I'm gonna do a benchmarking where we fiddle with the overclocking settings. And then after that, I'm gonna show you how to pull apart your 3090 and install a water block onto it. That's right. Not only did I get this monstrosity, but I'm gonna be water cooling it. So that's some stuff to look forward to. Won't be doing it all at once. Also, this came with a ring with some numbers on it. Don't think I've forgotten, that's still coming up. Look, I hope because I have this now that my videos I can put out a lot faster. I know I haven't put out for one for like 2 weeks now or 3 weeks. It's been a while. I'll show you what I was working on. I'll do a comparison on my old build that I've been playing around with, that I've been gaming on. It's got two 660s in it. That's right. Yeah, gross, right? Not gross, it was great in the day. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming on. Thanks guys for your patience. Ignore the fact you started this video and I was cleanly shaven, and by the end of it I'm disheveled and beside myself with a beard. But it's what being fluid with your look is, right? There's more coming. This has been Magenta's sTechTails, part of the Boozy Tails network. Hope you like this build. Maybe I'll cut together a smaller version so you can just see it put together nice and all that. I will be building a few more computers on this show. I have a laptop to take apart and upgrade the RAM. Yeah, we've got a few things coming, and thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you look forward to what we're gonna do with it. Yeah, thanks guys. Bye.